The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and wondered what waited for them out there. They dreamed of meeting other beings, of joining a great community among the stars. When the first interstellar ship finally launched from Earth, billions watched with tears in their eyes. They called the ship Horizon's Edge, and it carried humanity's hope into the unknown. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the front of the delegation. She was 52 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and calm brown eyes that had seen both war and peace on Earth. She had been chosen because she was patient, wise, and believed deeply that all intelligent beings could find common ground. The Horizon's Edge traveled for 3 years before it reached Valthrix Prime, a massive space station that floated between 3 dying stars. This was where species from across the galaxy came to meet, trade, and talk. Elena felt her heart race as the ship approached. This was the moment humanity had dreamed of for so long, but something was wrong. When the human delegation entered the Great Hall of Valthrix Prime, they did not find diplomats waiting to greet them. They found a court. Thousands of beings sat in rising rows of seats that stretched up into darkness. Some had bodies of metal. Others were made of gas or crystal. A few were so strange that human eyes could not fully understand what they were seeing. At the center of it all, floating above a platform of pure light, were the Ethereum. Elena had never seen anything like them. They were beings made of living starlight, shifting and flowing like flames frozen in time. They glowed with colors that had no names in any human language. They were beautiful and terrible, and when they looked at the human delegation, Lena felt like an insect under a magnifying glass. The high speaker of the Ethereum was called Valorix. Their voice did not come from a mouth. It simply existed, filling the entire hall like music and thunder combined. "Humanity," Valorix said. "You stand before the Galactic Conclave. We have ruled these stars for 11 million years. Every species that reaches beyond their birth world must answer to us. You have been judged." Elena stepped forward. Her translator device hummed against her ear. "Judged? We came here seeking friendship. We came in peace." A sound moved through the crowd. It took Elena a moment to realize it was laughter. "Peace," Valorix repeated. The word dripped with amusement. "You are a species that has existed for the blink of an eye. You have spent most of your short history killing each other over patches of dirt on your tiny world. You poison your own air and water. You split the atom and immediately used it to burn cities full of your own kind." Lena felt her face grow hot. "We have made mistakes, but we have also learned. We have grown. You have grown." Another Ethereum drifted forward. This one burned with cold blue light. "You reached the stars using explosion-based propulsion. Your fastest ships move at a fraction of light speed. Your understanding of physics is so primitive that you still believe time moves in one direction. You are children playing with fire in a house full of ancients." The crowd laughed again. Elena looked around at the thousands of alien faces. Some showed pity. Most showed contempt. A few showed nothing at all, as if humanity was too small to bother having feelings about. "We did not invite you here to negotiate," Valorix said. "We invited you here to receive your sentence." Lena's blood went cold. Sentence? For what crime? For the crime of reaching the stars without permission. For the crime of contaminating the void with your primitive vessels. For the crime of existing beyond your designated place. The human delegation looked at each other in horror. Captain Torres, the military officer in the group, moved his hand toward his sidearm. Elena grabbed his arm and shook her head. There were thousands of beings here. Many of them could probably destroy the entire human ship with a thought. "The Conclave has decided your fate," Valorix continued. "We will not destroy your species. That would be too merciful. It would also deprive the galaxy of a valuable lesson." A holographic image appeared in the center of the hall. It showed Earth, beautiful and blue, floating in the blackness of space. "Your home system will be enclosed in a containment field. You will be visible to all, but reachable by none. Other species will be allowed to observe you, to study you, to watch your little civilization stumble through its brief existence. You will serve as a reminder to any other primitive species that might dream of reaching beyond their station. Alina could not breathe. They were going to turn Earth into a zoo, a museum exhibit, a warning sign. You cannot do this, she whispered. We have already done it, Velric said. The field will be activated upon your return. You will deliver our message to your people. You will tell them to accept their place among the dust. A small chip floated down and landed in Elena's hand. It was warm and hummed with strange energy. This contains our judgment in all human languages. Share it with your world. Let them understand that the stars belong to those who have earned them. Humanity has not. The hall began to empty. Species that had watched the trial drifted away, already losing interest. Humanity was not even worth remembering. They were just another failed species, another cautionary tale. Alina stood alone in the great hall, holding the chip that contained humanity's death sentence. Not death of the body, but death of the spirit. Death of hope. They would live, but they would live as prisoners, as exhibits, as a joke. Captain Torres put a hand on her shoulder. Ambassador, we should go. Alina nodded slowly. But as she turned to leave, something changed in her eyes. The shock faded. The despair hardened into something else. Something cold and patient and very, very human. The Ethereum had made a mistake. They had let her see their technology. They had let her ship dock with their station. They had let her return home. They thought humanity was broken. They thought showing them their place would crush their spirit forever. They did not understand humans at all. As the horizon's edge departed from Valethrix Prime, Lena sat alone in her quarters. She did not cry. She did not rage. She simply opened her personal log and began to write. They want us to accept our place among the dust, she said quietly. They forget that dust is patient. Dust is everywhere. And given enough time, dust buries even the mightiest civilizations. She closed the log and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beings of living light thought they had crushed humanity's dreams. They had no idea what they had just awakened. The containment field appeared 3 days after the horizon's edge returned to Earth. It shimmered at the edge of the solar system, like a soap bubble made of pale golden light, beautiful and terrible. A cage for an entire species. Ships from across the galaxy came to watch. They parked just outside the field and observed humanity like visitors at an aquarium. Some took recordings to share with their homeworlds. Others simply stared, curious about the primitive species that had dared to reach for the stars. Inside the bubble, humanity received the news in different ways. Some people cried. Others raged. Riots broke out in several cities. Religious leaders declared it the end times. Politicians blamed each other. For the first few months, it seemed like the Ethereum had been right. Humanity was tearing itself apart. Then something strange happened. The fighting stopped. It did not stop because people gave up. It stopped because they realized how foolish they looked. Here they were, trapped by beings who saw them as insects, and they were busy arguing about borders and money and old grudges. The aliens watching from outside the field must have been laughing at them. That thought made people angry. Not at each other. At the ones who had put them in this cage. Dr. James Okonkwo was a physicist who had spent his life studying theoretical energy patterns. He was 60 years old, with kind eyes and hands that shook slightly from too much coffee. When the containment field appeared, he did not despair. He got excited. Do you understand what this means? He asked his colleagues at the university. They have shown us that our physics is incomplete. Every equation we thought was perfect has a hole in it. The field itself is proof that there are forces we have never imagined. Within weeks, James was recruited to lead Project Prometheus. The project was hidden beneath the ocean, in a facility carved into the rock below the Mariana Trench. The pressure of the water above them meant that no scanning technology could easily detect what they were doing. Governments that had been enemies for generations now worked together. The old rivalries seemed silly. What did it matter if you were from one country or another when the whole planet was a prison? Resources flowed to the project from every nation. The smartest minds from every continent gathered in secret facilities around the world. Alina Vasquez became the project's political leader. She had aged 10 years in the months since her return, but her eyes still held that cold, patient fire. She traveled constantly, meeting with world leaders, convincing them to set aside their differences. "They called us dust," she would say. "Let us show them what dust can do when it gathers into a storm." The aliens watching from outside the field saw nothing unusual. Satellites showed humans going to work, raising families, living normal lives. The observers grew bored. After a year, most of them stopped watching. Humanity was not interesting enough to hold their attention. This was exactly what the humans wanted. Beneath the surface, the real work continued. Engineers worked 18-hour days. Scientists pushed their bodies and minds to the breaking point. Every failure taught them something new. Every small success brought them closer to their goal. The containment field was not perfect. Nothing was perfect. James and his team studied its energy signature for months. They found patterns in the way it pulsed and flickered. They discovered that it operated on frequencies that human science had never imagined possible. "It is like a song," James explained to Alina during one of her visits. "A very complex song played on instruments we have never heard. But now that we know the song exists, we can learn to play it ourselves. Or better yet, we can learn to play a song that will break it." 3 years passed inside the containment field. To the outside galaxy, Earth remained quiet. The zoo exhibit was behaving itself. Inside, humanity had achieved miracles. The first breakthrough came when a young engineer named Yuki Tanaka figured out how to create a stable singularity, a tiny black hole, no bigger than an atom, held in perfect balance by magnetic fields. It produced more energy than 1,000 nuclear reactors. The second breakthrough came when Dr. Okonkwo's team cracked the mathematics behind the Ethereum's biology. The beings of living light were not gods. They were patterns of energy, held together by forces that could be mapped and understood. And anything that could be understood could be disrupted. The third breakthrough was the design of the weapon. They called it the Prometheus Lance. It was a device that could convert energy from one form to another in an instant. Against a normal ship, it would be devastating. Against a being made of pure energy, it would be catastrophic. Construction began on the ship that would carry these weapons to the stars. They built it in pieces, in secret locations across the solar system. Factories hidden in the asteroid belt forged armor plates from pure tungsten. Shipyards orbiting Jupiter assembled engine components in the shadow of the planet's radiation. On the dark side of the moon, teams worked around the clock, connecting everything together. The ship was not beautiful. The Ethereum built vessels that looked like artwork, all flowing lines and elegant curves. Humanity built a vessel that looked like a weapon. 7 kilometers of dark metal, bristling with sensors and gun ports. They did not give it a graceful name. They called it the Defiance. Sarah Chen was chosen to be its captain. She was 63 years old, a former shuttle pilot who had watched the containment field appear from orbit. She had spent every day since then, preparing for the moment when humanity would fight back. "We get one chance," she told her crew on the day they boarded. "One shot to show the galaxy that we will not be kept in a cage. If we fail, they will never give us another opportunity." The crew numbered 5,000. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, pilots. Every one of them was a volunteer. Every one of them knew they might not survive. Alina Vasquez came aboard for the final briefing. She was older now, her hair completely gray, but her eyes still burned with the same fire. "The Ethereum believe they are gods," she said. "They believe they are eternal and untouchable. But nothing is eternal. Nothing is untouchable. And we are about to prove it." The Defiance powered up its engines. The Singularity drives hummed with contained power. The weapon systems ran through their final checks. Outside the containment field, the few aliens still watching noticed nothing. Inside, humanity held its breath. The moment had come. After years of humiliation, years of secret work, years of patient preparation, humanity was ready to show the galaxy what happened when you tried to cage a species that refused to stay caged. The Defiance aimed its main weapon at the containment field and prepared to fire. Captain Sarah. Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched the containment field shimmer in the distance. It looked so fragile from here, like a bubble that a child might blow on a summer day. But she knew better. That bubble had held humanity prisoner for 4 years. It was built by beings who had ruled the galaxy for 11 million years. Today, humanity would pop that bubble. "All stations report ready," her first officer announced. Commander David Park was a tall man with a calm voice that never wavered, even in the worst situations. He had been chosen for this mission because nothing seemed to frighten him. "Charge the main weapon," Sarah ordered. Deep in the heart of the ship, the Prometheus lance began to gather power. The lights on the bridge flickered as energy flowed from the singularity drives into the weapon systems. The whole ship hummed like a tuning fork. Dr. James Okonkwo watched from his station in the science bay. He had spent 4 years building this weapon. For years of calculations, failures, breakthroughs, and sleepless nights. Now, he would finally see if it worked. "Energy levels at 60%, a technician reported. 70, 80. Sarah gripped the arms of her command chair. "Everyone brace for impact. We do not know exactly what will happen when the field collapses. 90%, 95, full charge achieved." The bridge went quiet. 5,000 humans held their breath across the ship. Billions more waited on Earth, watching through hidden cameras. Praying to whatever gods they believed in, Sarah Chen spoke 2 words. "Fire it." The Prometheus lance discharged. A beam of white gold light shot from the front of the Defiance. It struck the containment field at exactly the right frequency, at exactly the right angle. For a moment, nothing happened. The field simply absorbed the energy like water. Absorbing a stone, then cracks appeared. They spread like lightning across the golden surface. The field flickered, pulsed, and began to collapse in on itself. But it did not simply fade away. All the energy it had stored for 4 years had to go somewhere. The shockwave hit the Defiance like a giant's fist. The ship tumbled end over end. Crew members were thrown from their stations. Alarms screamed through every corridor. For 30 terrible seconds, it seemed like the ship would tear itself apart. Then the stabilizers kicked in. The Defiance righted itself and hung in empty space. The containment field was gone. Cheers erupted across the ship. People hugged each other, cried, laughed. On Earth, the news spread in seconds. The cage was broken. Humanity was free, but Sarah Chen did not celebrate. She stared at the sensor readings with cold focus. "Report," she ordered. "The shockwave was detected by every sensor in the quadrant," Commander Park said. "Every species within 50 light-years knows something just happened here." Good Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Let them know. Helm, set course for Luminara. Maximum speed." The bridge went silent again. Luminara was the home world of the Ethereum. No uninvited ship had traveled there in 3 million years. Any vessel that tried was destroyed before it got within 1 billion kilometers. Captain the helmsman said carefully, "Are you certain?" "They put us in a cage and called us animals," Sarah replied. "They broadcast our humiliation to the entire galaxy. Now we are going to knock on their front door and remind them what happens when you corner a species that has nothing left to lose." The Defiance jumped to faster than light speed. The stars stretched into lines and vanished as the ship entered a dimension that human physics had not known existed until 4 years ago. The journey to Luminara took 6 days. 6 days of tension, preparation, and waiting. The crew drilled constantly. They ran simulations of every possible battle scenario. They checked and rechecked their weapons. Sarah spent most of her time alone in her quarters, studying everything humanity had learned about the Ethereum. They were ancient beyond comprehension. They had seen species rise and fall like waves on a beach. They considered themselves the guardians of the galaxy, the keepers of order, the closest thing to gods that the universe had ever produced. But they were not invincible. Nothing was invincible. They had weaknesses, patterns, blind spots. They had never faced an enemy that truly wanted to hurt them. Because no enemy had ever survived long enough to learn how, humanity had learned. On the 6th day, The Defiance dropped out of faster than light speed at the edge of the Luminara system. It was the most beautiful thing Sarah had ever seen. The planet was not made of rock or water or gas. It was made of light. Pure, shimmering, dancing light. The Ethereum did not live on the surface. They were the surface. Billions of beings of living starfire, woven together into a world of pure energy. "We are being hailed," the communications officer announced. Her voice trembled slightly. "Put it through." The air in front of Sarah's chair rippled and glowed. A figure took shape, made of golden light with threads of silver running through its form. It was High Speaker Valerix, the same being who had sentenced humanity to imprisonment 4 years ago. Humans. Valerix's voice filled the bridge like thunder. "You have broken your containment. You have traveled to sacred space. You have committed crimes that cannot be forgiven." Sarah stood up from her chair. "We did not come to ask forgiveness. Then you came to die." Valerix's form flickered with what might have been amusement. One ship against the eternal? One ship against a species that was ancient when your son was young? This is madness. Maybe, Sarah admitted. But we have learned something about madness in the last 4 years. Sometimes it is the only sane response to an insane situation. "You have one chance," Valerix said. "Surrender your vessel. Accept permanent confinement to your homeworld. We will limit our punishment to your crew alone. Your species will not suffer further for your arrogance." Sarah looked around her bridge. At her crew, her friends, her family. They had all volunteered for this mission knowing they might not return. They had all accepted the risk because some things were more important than survival. "I have a counteroffer," Sarah said. "Let me speak to the galaxy. All of it. Every species that the Conclave has ever judged, imprisoned, or dismissed. Broadcast my words to every corner of known space." Valerix's form flickered. "Why would we agree to such a thing?" "Because if you do not, we will fire on Luminara itself. We have a weapon that can hurt you. You know this, or you would have destroyed us already. You are curious. You want to know what we have built? So give us our audience, and we will show you." The High Speaker was silent for a long moment. Around the Defiance, other Ethereum began to gather. Hundreds of them. Thousands. They surrounded the ship like a swarm of living stars. Finally, Valerix spoke. "Very well, human. The galaxy is watching. Speak your piece. And then we will decide whether your species lives or dies." Sarah Chen smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Thank you," she said. "This will not take long." The galaxy watched. 10,000 civilizations turned their attention to Luminara. On desert worlds and ocean planets, in space stations and asteroid colonies, beings of every shape and size gathered around their screens. The Conclave's communication network carried the signal to every corner of known space. No one wanted to miss what happened next. Captain Sarah Chen stood alone on the bridge of the Defiance. Around her ship, thousands of Ethereum circled like sharks made of starlight. One word from High Speaker Valerix, and they would tear the human vessel apart. Sarah knew this. She did not care. "My name is Sarah Chen," she began. "I am a human from the planet Earth. 4 years ago, my species sent our first ship to the stars. We came with open hands and hopeful hearts. We wanted to join the galactic community. We wanted to learn and grow and share what we had to offer." She paused and let her words sink in. "Instead, the Conclave put us on trial. They called us primitive. They called us a contamination. They locked our entire solar system inside a containment field and turned our home into a zoo exhibit. We were told to know our place among the dust, across the galaxy. Beings who had watched humanity's humiliation remembered that day. Some had laughed. Some had pitied the strange little species from the spiral arm. Most had simply shrugged and moved on with their lives. The Ethereum believed they had broken us," Sarah continued. "They believed that showing us our weakness would crush our spirit forever. They were wrong. They made the same mistake that countless others have made throughout human history. They underestimated us." High Speaker Valerix's form flickered with impatience. "This is your message? A complaint about your treatment?" The galaxy has more important matters to consider. I am not finished, Sarah said calmly. And yes, the galaxy should pay attention, because I am not here to complain. I am here to offer a gift. A gift. Valerix's voice carried a note of confusion. 4 years ago, we knew almost nothing about advanced technology. We could barely travel between our own planets. Today, we stand at the heart of the Ethereum's sacred space with a weapon that can wound beings of pure energy. Do you know how we achieved this? Sarah smiled. We learned. We studied the containment field that imprisoned us. We took apart every piece of technology we could find. We asked questions that no one else thought to ask. We failed 1,000 times and got up 1,001 times. We did what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. We adapted. She pressed a button on her chair. Throughout the galaxy, screens flickered as new data began to stream through the Conclave's own communication network. This is my gift to every species watching. The complete technical specifications for our singularity drive, the mathematical framework behind our energy conversion technology, and most importantly, the blueprints for the Prometheus Lance, a weapon that can hurt the Ethereum themselves. Valerix's form blazed with sudden fury. What are you doing? Stop this immediately. I cannot stop it, Sarah said. The transmission is already complete. Every world that the Conclave has ever conquered, every species that the Ethereum have ever judged unworthy, every civilization that has been told to know its place among the dust, now has the knowledge to fight back. The Ethereum surrounding the Defiance surged forward, but they did not attack. They could not. Destroying the human ship now would change nothing. The information was already spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. You fool, Valerix hissed. Do you understand what you have done? You have given weapons to species that are not ready for them. You have upset the balance that has kept the galaxy stable for millions of years. Balance. Sarah laughed bitterly. You call this balance? A handful of ancient species ruling over everyone else, deciding who deserves to reach the stars and who should be kept in chains? That is not balance. That is tyranny. And tyranny only lasts as long as the victims believe they cannot fight back. On worlds throughout the galaxy, beings began to stir. The Varath Collective, a species of silicon-based lifeforms who had been denied space travel for 10,000 years, started downloading the human data. The silicate minds of Kepler 442b. Artificial intelligences, who had been forbidden from expanding beyond their home system, began running calculations. The Teethrani, a peaceful species who had accepted their low status without question, looked at each other with new light in their eyes. You have doomed yourself, Valerix said. Even if we let your ship go, your species will never be safe. The Conclave will hunt you. We will burn your world to ash, maybe, Sarah admitted. But you will not do it today. Because if you destroy us now, every species watching will see it. They will see the mighty Ethereum, the beings who call themselves gods, lashing out in fear at a single ship. They will ask themselves, what are the Eternals so afraid of? And they will find the answer in the data we just gave them. The high speaker was silent. Around the Defiance, the swarm of Ethereum had stopped moving. They hung in space like frozen flames, waiting for orders that did not come. You cannot win this battle, Sarah said softly. Not by destroying us. Not by threatening us. The only way you win is by changing. By becoming something better than you have been. By treating other species as partners instead of pets. You ask us to abandon 11 million years of tradition. I ask you to evolve. That is what life does. It changes or it dies. Even gods are not immune to that rule. For a long moment, nothing happened. The galaxy held its breath. 10,000 civilizations waited to see what the Eternal would do. Finally, Valerix spoke. Your ship may leave Luminara space unharmed. But this is not over, human. You have started something that cannot be stopped. Forces will be set in motion that you cannot control. Millions may die because of what you have done today. Millions were already suffering because of what you did yesterday, Sarah replied. At least now, they have a choice. At least now, they have hope. The Defiance turned away from Luminara. The Ethereum parted to let it pass. No weapons were fired. No threats were made. But as the human ship jumped back to faster-than-light speed, something extraordinary happened. Across the galaxy, one by one, ships began to move. Species that had been silent for generations raised their voices. Demands for representation flooded the conclave's communication channels. Ancient treaties were questioned. Old assumptions were challenged. The gods had been wounded, not by a weapon of war, but by something far more powerful. An idea and ideas once released could never be contained again. 1 year after the Defiance returned to Earth, the Galactic Conclave began to fall apart. It did not happen all at once. There was no great war, no final battle between light and darkness. Instead, it happened slowly, like ice melting in spring. Species that had followed the Ethereum's rules for thousands of years started asking questions. Civilizations that had accepted their low status began demanding better treatment. The old order, which had seemed eternal and unbreakable, developed cracks that spread wider with each passing month. The Vorath Collective was the first to openly challenge the Conclave. They were beings of living crystal who had been denied the right to travel beyond their home system because the Ethereum considered them too aggressive. Now, armed with human singularity technology, they announced that they would go wherever they pleased. The Ethereum sent a fleet to stop them. What happened next shocked the galaxy. The Vorath did not surrender. They did not beg for mercy. They fought back with weapons based on human designs, modified and improved by their own scientists. 3 Ethereum warships were destroyed before the Eternal retreated. It was the first military defeat. The Ethereum had suffered in 8 million years. After that, the challenges came faster. The Silicate Minds demanded representation on the Conclave's ruling council. The Tethroni stopped paying tribute. Dozens of smaller species formed alliances, pooling their resources and knowledge. The galaxy was changing. The Ethereum could not stop it. High Speaker Valerix requested a meeting with Captain Sarah Chen 6 months after the Vorath incident. It took place on neutral ground, a small space station far from any major civilization. Sarah came alone, as did Valerix. There were no guards, no weapons, no witnesses, except for the stars themselves. They talked for 11 hours. No one knows exactly what was said during that conversation. Neither Sarah nor Valerix ever shared the details. But when they emerged, Valerix made an announcement that echoed across every communication. Channel in known space, the Galactic Conclave would be dissolved. In its place, a new organization would be formed, the Galactic Assembly. Every species, from the most ancient to the most newly spacefaring, would have a voice. No one would be judged unworthy. No one would be locked away in containment fields. The age of the Eternal was over. The news spread like lightning. On countless worlds, beings celebrated in the streets. Statues of Ethereum rulers were torn down. Songs were written about the humans who had defied the gods and won. On Earth, the reaction was more complicated. Alina Vasquez watched the celebrations from her home in Geneva. She was 70 years old now, her body tired from years of work and travel. But her eyes still held that spark of fire that had never quite gone out. Her granddaughter, bright girl of 8 named Maya, sat beside her on the couch. Grandmother Maya asked, "Why are people so happy?" Alina smiled and pulled the girl close. "Because something wonderful has happened, little one. For a very long time, there were beings out there among the stars who told everyone else what to do. They decided who was important and who was not. They kept many species trapped in cages, just like they tried to trap us. But we got out of the cage," Maya said.
Yes.
"We got out. And we helped others get out too. Now everyone has a chance to be free. Everyone has a voice." Maya thought about this for a moment. "Were you scared when you went up there and they called us names?" Alina remembered the great hall of Valethrix Prime, the laughter of 10,000 aliens, the feeling of being so small and helpless. Yes, she had been scared. More scared than she had ever been in her life. "I was," she admitted. "But being scared is not the same as giving up. The bravest people are not the ones who feel no fear. They are the ones who feel afraid and keep going anyway. The Defiance was retired after its historic journey. They towed the great ship to orbit around Earth's moon, where it could be seen from the surface on clear nights. It became a monument, a reminder of what humanity had achieved. Captain Sarah Chen returned to Earth a hero, but she did not seek fame or power. She retired to a small house by the ocean and spent her days teaching young pilots. When asked about her greatest achievement, she always gave the same answer. I did not defeat the Ethereum. No one did. We simply showed them, and the rest of the galaxy, that power is not the same as rightness. Being strong does not make you wise. Being ancient does not make you good. The only thing that truly matters is how you treat others. Years passed. The Galactic Assembly grew stronger. Earth sent ambassadors to 100 worlds. Human scientists collaborated with beings they had never imagined. Human artists created works that were celebrated across the stars. Human children grew up knowing that the universe was vast and strange and wonderful, and that they had a place in it. The plaque above the human delegations chamber in the assembly hall read simply, Asterisk from dust. Defiance Asterisk Dotalina Vasquez passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 89. Her funeral was attended by representatives from dozens of species. Even a single Ethereum came, a young one who had been born after the fall of the conclave. It bowed its head of starlight in respect as Elena's ashes were scattered over the ocean she had loved. Maya, now a young woman of 20, stood at the shore and watched her grandmother become one with the waves. She did not cry. Grandmother had taught her that death was not an ending. It was simply a change, like all the other changes that made up the story of life. That night, Maya looked up at the sky. She could see the Defiance glinting in the moonlight, a tiny spark of metal against the darkness. Beyond it, the stars stretched out forever, filled with mysteries waiting to be discovered. The Ethereum had called humanity dust. They had meant it as an insult, a way to make humans feel small and worthless. But dust is everywhere. Dust is patient. Dust fills the cracks in the mightiest fortresses. Dust covers the bones of every creature that has ever lived. And sometimes, when the conditions are right, dust comes together and forms new stars. Maya smiled and made a silent promise to the grandmother who had changed the course of history. She would spend her life among those stars. She would see the wonders of the galaxy with her own eyes. And whenever she met a species that others called primitive or worthless or unimportant, she would remember where humanity had started. From dust, they had risen. From dust, they had become something extraordinary, and this was only the beginning.